Tonight, supreme social distancing.
Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay.
The first Supreme Court religious liberty case heard over teleconference. This as the country's debt reaches new highs.
We haven't seen this before.
With the U.S. borrowing trillions more to offset the economic fallout from the pandemic. And more than half of all U.S. states are either reopening or easing restrictions.
We're still in a significant war with an enemy.
With the coronavirus now claiming more than 70,000 American lives. Plus, new cadets join the Space Force. All this and more tonight on Fake Nation.
The Supreme Court takes on religious freedom and Obamacare. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Well, more than 10 years after it became law, the Affordable Care Act is back before the High Court, pitting access to birth control against religious liberty and which groups the government can exempt.
This case, like others this week and next, is being argued for the first time ever by phone because of COVID-19. And as Paul Strand reports, another first. One justice weighing in from her hospital bed.
From her hospital room, Justice Ginsburg insisted the Little Sisters of the Poor should have been forced to provide abortion-causing contraceptives to female employees, not be exempted.
You have just tossed entirely to the wind what Congress thought was essential, that is that women be provided these services with no hassle, no cost to them.
But the Little Sisters attorney argued the nuns would never buckle, meaning they'd face fines of $60 to $70 million a year for not complying, a heavy penalty to pay for practicing their religious freedom.
When the government imposes a burden on religion by telling the Little Sisters that they have to comply with the mandate or the accommodation or else, when the or else is massive penalties, that plainly provides a substantial burden on religious exercise.
The government's contraceptive mandate directed us to provide contraceptives and life-ending drugs in our health care plan or pay millions of dollars in fines, which would have crippled our ministry.
Lori Wyndham is also defending the Little Sisters.
It would be devastating for their ministry if they were fined and if they were forced to, if they were put to a choice between following their faith and living and being true to that and being able to continue the ministry.
The pandemic has changed so many things, including wiping out huge demonstrations outside the Supreme Court. This time there were just nuns praying for the Little Sisters of the Poor.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
And instead of addressing a big rally on the steps, well-known figures Skyped in to voice their support.
The Little Sisters of the Poor deserve permanent relief from the contraceptive mandate so that they can serve the elderly poor without violating their beliefs.
The federal government years ago gave the nuns a religious exemption, but in this case, states are insisting the feds can't do that.
Just be an all or nothing choice. You can only have a contraceptive mandate if you're willing to force nuns to do it.
It's hard to believe the state governments would go after and bully nuns who simply want to serve the elderly poor.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
As Paul mentioned, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is back in the hospital tonight. She's receiving non-surgical treatment for a gallbladder condition. A spokesperson says she is resting and, of course, still able to phone in for arguments.
$3 trillion. That's how much the U.S. Treasury says it will borrow this quarter alone, adding to the country's debt as lawmakers work to offset the economic devastation of the pandemic. So what impact will it have in the long run? Jennifer Wishon explains.
In just a matter of weeks, a microscopic virus managed to cripple the world's greatest economy, triggering Congress to spend $2.7 trillion, possibly more, and leading the Fed to authorize an additional $4 trillion to stop the bleeding. It's the type of spending the U.S. hasn't seen since World War II, and that spending occurred over the course of 5 years.
So to the extent that lawmakers have been talking about this being a war-like effort, On the spending and deficit side, it certainly looks that way.
Batya and other experts don't fault Congress or the Fed for their actions.
If you look at the next 2-3 years, our economy is going to be awfully weak, and you really do need the government spending to keep the economy from weakening even further.
The federal government is now $24 trillion in debt. And this year, the national deficit has already quadrupled to nearly $4 trillion, with another massive relief package expected from Congress.
The deficit for this year at $3.7 trillion will exceed all of the tax revenues the government can hope to collect by roughly $700 billion.
So what impact will this massive new debt have long-term on spending in areas like defense, healthcare, and entitlement programs? Batya believes cutting defense spending would be the wrong move.
Lawmakers should target the key programs driving the growth in U.S. spending, but that will be also problematic because one of the biggest ones is Medicare and also Medicaid spending. And I think we will see the American people asking for more investments in health coming out of this public health crisis.
In the not-so-distant future, lawmakers will likely feel pressure to raise taxes to offset the spending, which could prolong an economic recession. And if individuals have taken on more personal debt to make it through the crisis, that too will affect the recovery.
Maybe they're behind on their mortgage and student loan payments, and making up for that could mean reduced consumption on the other side.
Look for some people to also lose their vehicles because of higher interest and longer terms on car loans. There's also the likelihood unemployment will be higher, with estimates it will be 10% by the end of 2021.
We're bound to see a whole wave of bankruptcies and financial strain. That'll be the fallout.
And America will likely have to contend with more than its own financial woes. Lockman says we can expect a negative economic spillover from across the globe.
We haven't seen this before, that so many countries have been hit at the same time by a shock as large as this coronavirus.
So instead of more stimulus going forward, some experts say the best focus for lawmakers is the healthcare crisis, so Americans can get back to work and allow the private sector to drive the recovery. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And tonight in the U.S., human testing is underway for coronavirus vaccines.
That's right, Jenna. And if it proves to be safe and effective in trials, a vaccine could be ready for distribution by the end of the year.
CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now. And Ben, it sounds like there's more than one vaccine possibility here.
Yeah, Jenna, John, you're right. Turns out more than 100 vaccines are being studied worldwide with 8 human testings. What is normally being done in years is actually happening now in months.
President Trump is considering changing the coronavirus task force's focus, tweeting it'll shift to safety and opening up our country again. We may add or subtract people.
I thought we could wind it down sooner, but I had no idea how popular the task force is until actually yesterday when I started talking about winding it down.
38 states have begun easing restrictions. In Texas, for example, Governor Greg Abbott is allowing barbershops, salons, and other personal services to reopen this weekend, despite seeing an increase of nearly 2,000 new coronavirus cases across the state in the last 24 hours.
Texas is fully capable of being able to manage the healthcare needs of everybody who contracts COVID-19.
Illinois is taking a more conservative approach, opening the state region by region.
There's so much pressure for us to get back to that normal, but the truth is that we're still in a significant war with an enemy.
But the enemy's days could be numbered as pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and BioNTech launched human trials for a vaccine.
Because this is a phase 1 trial, it is double-blinded and randomized. So I'm not actually sure on my end, like if I got one of the vaccine candidates or if I had a placebo. So we're employing all the normal safety precautions.
And a bit of an update here in the U.S. There are now more than 1.2 million confirmed COVID-19 cases with 70,000 deaths from the virus. John, Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy, thank you. And here now for more, CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. David, critics say President Trump is taking a gamble here by reopening the economy while we're still seeing a rise in cases. I know you recently talked with his 2016 campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. What is Corey saying about all of this, David?
Yeah, Jenna, Corey says it is a threat to this president's incumbency. In other words, there might not be a second term when it comes to Donald Trump if this gamble backfires. And there's a chance that that could happen. And Corey Lewandowski admitted to that to me the other day when I spoke to him. He's also concerned about the economy. Look, he's a political guy, and he knows that 30 million people unemployed and an unemployment rate north of 19% is not good political news, even if you don't blame it on the president. The reality is when people are in a sour mood, that doesn't bode well for you at the ballot box come November.
David, speaking of unemployment, yesterday the president said that he was going to shut down the coronavirus task force and replace it with an unspecified new advisory body. Today, just as we heard in Ben's piece, he's now saying that the group will continue indefinitely. Why the change in course?
Well, there are a couple things to sift through here, and we'll try to do it relatively quickly. Look, just because the coronavirus task force is technically coming to an end doesn't mean that the work doesn't continue. It'll just take various forms. I mean, Deborah Birx has an office in the West Wing, and that will continue. But look, beyond all of that, we know what this president wants to do. He wants to make sure that we start focusing on the reopening of America, the economy, and that, as we know, is where all of the mojo, if you will, and all the momentum right now is going to be for this president. This president thrives on positive and positivity, and it's very important for him to get rid of the negative and bad news. Now, can you get rid of this bad news quickly? Going to be tough. This is an invisible enemy, as he said, but he wants to pivot. We'll see if the pivot's a gamble that cost him the presidency.
Yeah, David, the White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany held her second news conference today. The administration has many women in high-power, very visible positions. Do you think this is calculated? Is it intentional as we head into an election? And what do you see as the strategy here?
No, I don't think it's intentional at all. Look, he brought in Anthony Scaramucci, who is the top attack dog that you'd ever find. I mean, to the point where, you know, he was over the top, right? I mean, we're all kind of clear on that. But look, Kayleigh McEnany, she's not Anthony Scaramucci, which, by the way, she would take as a compliment, but she is an attack dog. And so if you look at every type of person that Donald Trump likes to bring in a PR sense, in a communication sense, you look at the campaign, Laura Trump as well. I mean, these folks, they're women. But so what that they're women? They're attack dogs, and they represent the president in the way that he wants to be represented.
David, real quickly here, 30 seconds left. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo got in a little bit of a contentious dust-up with reporters during a press briefing, blaming the press of really trying to drive a wedge between the administration officials. Is he making a case against the media, or is this really, is there more to it than that?
Now, look, John, Jenna, this is much ado about nothing. Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo have been very consistent on what they've been saying. And the consistency is we're not quite sure what China's up to, but we know something smells fishy, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. They've been very consistent on that. Look, if they're talking about Anthony Fauci, who said that it didn't come from a lab in Wuhan, OK, that's a scientific explanation for it. But that doesn't mean they're all in conflict necessarily. It's one person. This is coming from the president, the Secretary of State. They're simpatico on this.
All right. CBN's David Brody, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys.
A milestone for the newest branch of the U.S. military. Coming up, an update on the Space Force.
To have a sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Tonight, dozens of new cadets are flying to join the United States Space Force.
Yeah, Jenna, created last year, the new military branch aims to defend America's valuable interests in the final frontier. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips explains what's at stake. Eric?
Well, John and Jenna, to understand the significance of this big step, you have to understand a little bit of history. The Space Force is the first new branch of the military since the Air Force in 1947. Born out of the Army, the Air Force has now spawned a new generation.
This is a very big and important moment. It's called the Space Force.
Fast forward 6 months since President Trump paved the way for the 6th branch of the military.
This is the first class that is commissioning cadets directly into the new United States Space Force.
86 cadets joined the brand new service at the Air Force graduation a couple weeks ago.
Officially, on the Space Force scrolls, you are numbers 3 through 88. You are our future, and I need you to be bold. And you, if deterrence fails, will fight and win the battle for space superiority, which is so vital to our nation.
It was a great day for our nation.
I sat down with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy and the Vice Commander of the Space Force to talk space.
Because space is so important, we now need an armed force that is dedicated to being prepared to protect and defend our interests and allied interests in space if necessary.
Officials say that disruption could come from potential adversaries like Russia or China targeting our global positioning satellites, which would change life as we know it.
So you think about how many times a day people follow the blue dot on their cell phone, right? You think about how many times they pay for gasoline at the pump or use a credit card in a grocery store. Think about our forces in the Middle East who are navigating tracts of open desert without any landmarks or features, the way ships navigate across oceans, right? We've got aircraft that routinely fly between continents.
All using GPS technology, and training for this branch is evolving.
Developing space doctrine, developing a true training regimen that teaches those space warriors how to first deter, but if necessary, fight and win in space. Most of what we do in that sense today is in computer-based simulations and training.
It is systems such as ground-to-space missiles, it's cyber attack, it's space-based systems.
They say the Space Force is looking for warriors who excel in science and math, who are inquisitive in nature, and who want to be a part of history.
They have a chance to look back someday and tell, their grandchildren, I was there at the birth. Let me tell you about what we did. And that's exciting for all of us.
Exciting indeed. Officials say that the work to build the Space Force is not being slowed by the coronavirus pandemic. And they point out that in addition to the military recruits, there are also 41 civilian positions that need to be filled. And get this, so far they've received about 6,000 applications for those positions. John and Jenna.
All right, thank you, Eric. From supplies for amusement park rides to face masks, how some manufacturers are joining the fight against the pandemic when Faith Nation returns.
on the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Back. Businesses are mobilizing to meet the needs of healthcare workers on the front lines,
with some having to completely change their production lines. CBN's Charlene Aaron has more.
Since 2008, Signature Canvas Makers has been known for making products for boats. But in light of COVID-19, the business has now turned into a major mask-making operation. Charlene Clark runs this small business with her husband, Chandler, supplying canvas material for water recreation and amusement park rides. Seeing the growing demand for masks and face shields, they decided to step up.
We said, you know what, we can do this. We have the ability to do this. We have the technology to do this. We have the network of people that we can bring in to do this. So it made sense.
Using computer design technology known as CAD, the company quickly retooled, switching from recreation to protection.
We have a cutting table, so that has allowed us to really scale and scale very quickly. So we're able to cut hundreds of masks at a time rather than one or two, or smaller quantities. So it has been a little bit of a departure, but it is canvas, it is textile, it is a textile product. So that's our business. That's what we do.
With a staff of 9 employees, the business normally makes 300 to 400 surgical and filter-style masks a week. Then the Navy came knocking with a major need.
We had an order for, our first really big order was for 1,600 masks for the USS Wasp. And they had a very definitive deadline that they were asking us to meet. And we had about a week to meet that deadline. No pressure.
Allows you to adjust.
Since then, military requests have been coming in from other parts of the country.
We've been working with different other commands, all the way from here in Norfolk all the way down to Pensacola, Florida, to supply quantities to their sailors. It's been a great transition for us.
That transition allowed the Clarks to meet another need. They hired more people, including those desperate for work.
We have about 12 to 15 ladies that are working for us from their homes. They've been laid off from their jobs, their normal jobs. Most of them are professional seamstresses or tailors.
Abigail Bomar was furloughed from her job at a small boutique.
It's been a great way to spend my time, great way to make some extra money.
Thankful also for work that is making a difference.
And doing something purposeful feels great.
A sentiment shared by her new employer.
I thank God every day that we are in the position that we are in right now. I have so many friends that own their own businesses that aren't as fortunate as we are to, they've had to lay off employees. They're on, potentially on the verge of losing their businesses. We are very grateful for this opportunity. We are very grateful that we are able to employ people on the outside and help them support themselves and their families. The fact that we've been able to help some of our sailors is something that's really special to us as well.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regents award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Tomorrow is the annual National Day of Prayer, and it's going to look quite a bit different this year. In the past, people have come together in more than 60,000 nationwide events to pray for America. This year, though, it is all going virtual. You can catch the special National Day of Prayer event tomorrow night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Watch it live on the CBN News Channel, cbnnews.com, the CBN News app, or on YouTube. And today is National Nurses Day. These past few months, of course, we've all seen just how hard nurses work.
Yeah, and so many of the nation's 3 million nurses have served on the front lines in the fight against COVID-19. Today, President Trump honored their hard work with a presidential proclamation.
When I watch people running into those hospitals, they have nothing on their mind except helping people and making people better. It's an incredible.
National Nurses Day is the official kickoff for National Nurses Week, which culminates on May 12th, Florence Nightingale's birthday. And Jenna, this is just really a great opportunity to pause and thank our nurses and our medical workers on the front lines doing the work that they've been doing for the last several months.
Yeah, they are our heroes.
Indeed.
Yeah, we owe them a great debt of gratitude.
Absolutely.
That is going to do it for Faith Nation.
Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you again tomorrow.